Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Friday, May 15th, 2020. Today I'm going to recap the latest with the virus, and then I'm going to talk about this morning's KBO games, look ahead to tomorrow's sports reruns that will be on over the weekend, recapping last night's episodes of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Celebrity Watch Party, predict the winner of American Idol, 2014 NHL ReDraft, and my 2016 Top 10 album. Okay, we'll start with the virus and the latest sports-related news to come out of this. Major League Baseball draft to be remote, and the league to hold the 2020 draft by video conference on June 10th through the 11th amid the COVID-19 pandemic. ESPN reported that. That was bound to happen. The NFL had smashing success with it. I think that baseball is going to learn from that, and they can have success with it as well. And I do think that they're going to have an all-time high ratings number for the Major League Baseball draft. If the WNBA draft can get their highest number ever, so could the Major League Baseball draft. So, looking forward to it. I'm going to keep on doing the mock drafts up until June 10th. I'm going to be doing one a week, and then once the June rolls along, then I'll be doing more of them once the draft gets closer. The NFL is considering a plan to reward teams with higher draft picks for hiring minority candidates as GMs and coaches. That's not really COVID related, but that is a huge deal that I just wanted to give a mention to real quick. And then Rob Manfred was on CNN and tells them that frequent tests will be the key to restarting games, and the positive test won't mean shutting down a team. That's the right way to go. I think that he and Adam Silver and all the other commissioners learned from Dana White when his fighter got tested positive. They just had to cancel that particular match. But they kept going with the event, and Dana White had tremendous success with his event. So they're going to learn from Dana, and Dana obviously was involved in all the commissioner sports talking to Donald Trump when he spoke to all of them. So, I think Manfred and Silver and the rest of the commissioners of the sports will learn from Dana White, and that it can work out. NASCAR starting this weekend. Should be fun. Maybe I'll give out a pick at the end of the show, just because it's the first race in 2 months, and they're finally back. And I'll look at the odds and make a prediction on who I think will win the race down there in Darlington. Now I'm going to recap the KBO games from last night and look ahead to tonight's slate of games. Or I should say to today's games and tomorrow's games. Doosan over Kia 13-4, NC over SK 6-2, KT over Samsung 14-6. Kaiwoom LG got postponed due to weather, and Hanwha over Latte 2-1. Standings: NC's 8-1 all alone, best record so far through 9-10 games. Kaiwoom, Latte, and Doosan are all 6-3. LG's 5-3. Kia, Samsung, and Hanwha 4-6. KT 2-7, and SK is 1-8. So KT and SK are clearly the two worst teams in the league. I'm just gonna pick the game straight up tonight, they're technically tonight. Two of them are technically tonight, so they're day games over there. And then the other two are technically night games. Kaiwoom and LG. I am going to take Kaiwoom. They're way better than LG. Latte, Hanwha. Hanwha's playing well. Latte is starting to regress a little bit after their good start. I'm going to go with Hanwha. Doosan and Kia. That's good. Two teams that are kind of similar. I am going to go with Doosan in that one. NC and SK, that's the lock. I love NC. And then Samsung and KT, I'm going with Samsung. Like I said, KT and SK are clearly the very two worst teams in the KBO. Now I'm going to talk about the sports reruns that will be aired tonight and throughout the weekend. I love going through these and reliving some memories, whether they're fun for me or not. Some of these games are normally classics, others not really. Cowboys 49ers NFC Championship game, so this was probably 1995 season. CBS tomorrow is revealing the 2018 PGA Championship final round. That was one of the better tournaments. Documentary on the Bad Boy Pistons. ABC Saturday night, they were airing Kobe Bryant's final game against the Utah Jazz, and he went nuts in that game. That game's been on a lot. This is the first time I've seen 2019 NBA Finals Game 6, Raptors-Warriors. So the Raptors win their first title in NBA history. That's going to be on Sunday, and obviously NASCAR Live on Sunday. So Fox doesn't have to re-air anything old. And then the 2000 PGA Championship final round will be re-aired on CBS. Obviously, ESPN all day is going to be airing The Last Dance because it's going to be the last couple of episodes, obviously. So that is pretty sad. And NBCSN, I don't see them re-airing anything. NFL Network's re-airing Hard Knocks. A lot of TBAs in terms of hockey and Major League Baseball on the docket for Sunday because they really are unsure. A lot of older games, 70s games. Oh, here's a good one. 2013 Maple Leafs at the Brewers. That's probably Game 7. They're re-airing that tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. So that's obviously one of the better classic games between those rivals. Obviously, the Bruins came back from 3-1 down in that series and down 4-1 in that game. And that was one of the crazier outcomes. 2018 Penguins Flyers Game 6 Round 1 is on right now on NHL Network. And that was obviously the in-state rival series a few years ago. Now I'm going to recap Who Wants to Be a Millionaire from last night. They kicked it off with Catherine O'Hara, who made it up to the $32,000 question when time was up. Her help was Brad Rutter. She did a phone a friend on the $250,000 question, and then she walked away with $250,000 after getting that $250,000 question correct. And then she was stumped on the $500,000, so she walked away with $250,000, which is pretty good for her charity. Then Dr. Phil was the second contestant up. He's playing for When Georgia Smiled. That's a nice foundation that is close to his hometown. His help, Pam Mueller, formerly of Jeopardy, and time ran out as he got to the $32,000 question, just like Catherine O'Hara. So, fun episode, and obviously next week, Dr. Phil will continue, and probably will have a new contestant or two, so that should be fun. Now I'm going to recap yesterday's episode of the Celebrity Watch Party. Reggie Bush showed up for this episode with his wife Lil, Romeo Master P, Justin Long, and his brother Christian, Raven Simone with her friends, Brian and Austin, or the friends of Raven, Curtis Stone and Lindsay Price, and Lindsay's brother Brian, the Osbournes, Tyra Banks and her mother, Steve Wozniak and his wife Janet, JoJo Siwa and her mother Jesselyn, Joe Buck and his wife Michelle, and Robert and Kim Herjavec. And the shows in this episode included Good Morning America, 9/11, and GMA was on Murder Hornets. Nailed It. Entertainment Tonight on Elon Musk's baby's name. Jordan Ramsay's 24 Hours to Hell and Back. The Joy of Painting, Kings of Pain, and Dirty Dancing. So no Masked Singer, no Last Dance. I think next week's show you'll see the Idol finale, so that's interesting. Oh, and the Masked Singer finale too. So the Masked Singer will probably be back on next week's episode, and the Last Dance will probably be back too, because that's that finale as well. And speaking of the finale for American Idol, we're gonna talk about it right now. Obviously, it's the last show. You have the top 7, and they're all going to be performing. There's a lot of celebrity performances as well. You have Just Sam. You have Johnny West. You have Arthur Gunn. You have Julia Gargano. You have Dylan James. And you have Louis Knight. And there's one more I'm blanking on. I need to think of it. But they're all competing for the coveted crown of American Idol 2020. It's just unfortunate for this group because obviously they had to shorten the season due to the pandemic, and obviously it would have gone longer, and the show would have been on twice a week like it normally would be in a normal year. So again, the final 7. You have Louis Knight, Julia Gargano, Francisco Martin is who I forgot about. Dylan James, Julia Gargano, Louis Knight, Johnny West, Just Sam, and Arthur Gunn. All right. I'm going to do my predictions. I don't know if they'll reveal how the voting will go, but I'm going to do my picks of my runner-up and my winner. I'll do my runner-up first. I think my runner-up, the runner-up, which is my runner-up, will be Johnny West. I think he had a great year. I think that the judges love him. I think that fans love him. Obviously, he'll be remembered not only for his talents, but for having his girlfriend on the show, too, and how she auditioned in the past, and how she got cut prior to the Hawaii round, and Katy Perry just is not a fan of Margie. And Margie was the girlfriend, and neither was I. I thought she was cocky. I thought she was selfish, and I thought that she was a me person, and she was spoiled, and I could just go on a lot about many things, and I really think she's kind of fake. But she's a good girlfriend to Johnny, and that's good. And I think Johnny's a very talented kid. Katy Perry also said that she predicted Johnny to go further than Margie, and she was right, and it wasn't even close. Johnny could very well win this competition, but I think he'll fall just short. And my winner for American Idol 2020 is Just Sam. I think Just Sam is the absolute best on this show, the best contestant left right now. There's just something about her that makes her so special. Her story's fantastic. She's gotten better and better and better by the week. She's really grown up into a woman. And she really has blown me away, blown the judges away. I think this girl absolutely deserves it, and I think she has a bright future ahead of her in music. And she can do pretty much anything. Like, she's that talented, and she's saying a dream is a wish your heart makes very beautiful last week. And Arthur Gunn, Louis Knight, Julia Gargano, Francisco Martin, and Dylan James, they're all very talented people. And there are a lot of talented people that got eliminated in Hawaii and got eliminated before the top 7 and before the top 11 because of how loaded this class was. I thought that Sophia Wackerman was going to be certainly in the top 7. I thought she got robbed But, oh well. Hopefully she has a career ahead of her because she, I think, is the most talented person that didn't make it to the last round. But who knows? Maybe they'll bring back some of the people that didn't make the top 7 because of they normally do that on your normal American Idol finale. But now, obviously, this is going to be quarantined. It's going to be live, which is awesome. And this is going to be the first actual live show of the year. Although the quarantine results episodes are probably filmed the day of or the day before, but had to keep it a secret. But apparently this is the very first live show of the season. And you got to do the finale live. It's only right. And I think it'd be only fitting if the winner of Vital will be on live with Kelly and Ryan on Monday, because obviously Ryan is obviously Kelly's co-host, and I just think that'd be fitting. And plus Kelly, and back when she was working with Regis, used to have on the winner all the time, and Ellen, like they would all do their rounds to the talk shows. You'll see that. And obviously all the talk shows are doing their shows from home until further notice. So expect to see whomever wins on Sunday night on Live with Kelly and Ryan on Monday as well. Now I'm going to preview the final 2 episodes of The Last Dance. This is very sad. I think the quickest 5 weeks of the quarantine were the 5 weeks of The Last Dance that would be on every Sunday night, 2 hours each episode. Or 2 hours, but 1 hour per episode. And like I said, it's going to be sad. And I think there's going to be a lot of tears. So they're marathoning it all day, hour by hour, with the episodes. Episode 1 at 1 o'clock and so forth. And then you get the 9 o'clock for episode 9, which gets into a lot of how their path to their 6th title only gets more challenging as it goes along. So you'll see the Pacers and Reggie Miller in this episode for sure. And episode 10 is the finale, unfortunately, for us sports fans, as it's the end, and how they're going to show that finals, that Last Dance finals for Jordan and the Bulls as they look for their 6th title, and a perfect ending for the Last Dance. And it'll probably show Jordan retiring for the 2nd time, and then Phil Jackson leaving as Bulls head coach, and the end of Scottie Pippen, and a lot more. So I'm sure there'll be some tears on Sunday night from a lot of NBA fans after The Last Dance is over. And we'll talk about The Last Dance on the show with my guest tonight, James Celestin. Now I'm going to do my 2014 NHL ReDraft. This was an interesting process. This draft has a lot of names in there. It's top heavy, and then it drops off to like very good players, and then there's a lot of role players in there as well. So without further ado, here we go. The Florida Panthers at number 1 go with Leon Draisaitl. That's the obvious pick. Draisaitl's one of the favorites to win the Hart Trophy this season, helping lead the Oilers back to the postseason alongside Connor McDavid. And imagine him on the Panthers with Jonathan Huberdeau. That would have been something. And instead they go with Aaron Ekblad. The Buffalo Sabres at number 2, David Pastrnak, an elite goal scorer in the NHL today. The Bruins stole him later in the 1st round. Imagine him with Jack Eichel. Holy crap. And instead they go with Sam Reinhart. The Oilers at number 3 go with Braden Point. So with Leon Draisaitl off the board, they go with another talented center in Braden Point, who really has emerged as one of the more underrated great players in the NHL, being overshadowed by Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos down there in Tampa. And that's not a bad consolation prize either. And instead, they obviously went with Draisaitl. The Calgary Flames at 4 go with William Nylander, one of the key contributors to the Maple Leafs over the last couple of seasons. Him and Johnny Gaudreau would have been fun to watch together, and instead they went with Sam Bennett. The Islanders at number 5 go with Tony DeAngelo, someone who really broke out last year with the Rangers. Had a ton of points as a defenseman, and a lot of goals, too, for a defenseman as well. I correctly predicted him as the Rangers' breakout player of the 2019-20 season in terms of non-rookies, so a pat on the back for myself. And imagine him on the Islanders. He'd probably be their best offensive defenseman. Instead, they go with Michael Dalcali. The Canucks at number 6 go with Victor Olofsson. Olofsson was stolen late in the draft. Buffalo just stole him. And imagine him with their core right now. And instead they went with Jake Virtanen. The Hurricanes at 7 go with Kevin Fiala. Fiala's a solid player. Really came into his own with the Wild after being traded for Mikael Granlund in Nashville. Imagine Fiala with Andrei Svechnikov and Sebastian Aho. Instead, the Canes went with Hayden Fleury. The Maple Leafs at number 8 go with Nikolaj Ehlers. So with Nylander off the board, they go with Ehlers, someone who really has come into his own with the Winnipeg Jets over the last couple of years. The Jets at number 9 go with Aaron Ekblad. So the real number 1 overall pick drops from 1 to 9. And this would have been a solid pick for Winnipeg. He'd be their top defenseman right now, that's for sure. And instead they went with Nikolaj Ehlers, who I just talked about. The Ducks at number 10 go with Dylan Larkin, someone who I don't love. I think he's a little overrated because he's on the terrible Red Wings, and he was just hyped to be a franchise player, which he's not. He's just a very good player, in my opinion. There'd be a number 2 center on a cup contender. And he would have been fine on Anaheim. Instead, they go with Nick Ritchie. Nashville at 11 goes with Jacob Vrana. Vrana is someone who really came into his own with Washington this past year. He would have been a top 6 guy for Nashville, and instead they went with Kevin Fiala. The Coyotes at number 12 go with Igor Shesterkin, the new franchise goalie with the New York Rangers, the heir apparent to Henrik Lundqvist. I think he could very well be the next Henrik Lundqvist. I think he's awesome, and he certainly would have been the Coyotes' goalie of the future. And instead, they went out and traded for Antti Raanta. They traded a lottery pick for Antti Raanta. And instead, they went with Brendan Perlini here. The Capitals at 13 go with Sam Reinhart. So Sam Reinhart falls from 2 to 13. Reinhart's been okay the last couple of years. Good, solid number 2 center. He would have been a good number 2 behind Nicholas Backstrom in Washington. And instead, they go with Jacob Vrana, who I already talked about. 14, the Dallas Stars go with Elvis Merzlikins, another young franchise goaltender. This is Columbus's guy for the future. I was way wrong about how I thought Columbus would have missed Bravovsky. But, boy, this kid's an absolute star for Columbus and will keep them relevant along with Seth Jones for years to come. And he would have been a good franchise goalie for Dallas instead of them going out and making the trade for Ben Bishop, who is in decline. And instead, Dallas went with Julius Honka. The Red Wings at 15 go with Nick Schmaltz. So Nick Schmaltz is interesting. He was picked by the Blackhawks and he got traded for Dylan Strome, which I think both teams would do that trade over. They would do that trade again, both of those teams, because those are both good fits now for their respective guys with Schmaltz in Arizona and Dylan Strome in Chicago. He would have been fine on Detroit, and like I said earlier, they took Dylan Larkin here. And although Dylan Larkin's better than Nick Schmaltz. Number 16, the Columbus Blue Jackets go with Jake Virtanen. So Virtanen falls from 6 to 16. He would have been a solid middle line guy for the Blue Jackets. Instead, they go with Sonny Milano. The Philadelphia Flyers at 17 go with Travis Sanheim. So no do-over here as the Flyers get their guy in Sanheim. Top 4 defensemen on their team. They have a lot of young defensemen on their team that they really like. So Philly's in good shape going forward. 18, the Minnesota Wild, Jared McCann. McCann's bounced around a little bit. He's not a bad player. He's just a above-average role player. Can play on one of the middle lines or on a fourth line. Instead, many went with Alex Tuch, who obviously is now with the Vegas Golden Knights. 19, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Kasperi Kapanen. Kapanen drafted by Pittsburgh, then traded to the Maple Leafs in the deal that sent Phil Kessel to Pittsburgh from Toronto, and then Kapanen went to Toronto, so he was the prize in that deal. Expectations are high for this kid to be very good. I just think he needs some time. He's still young. I think he could be a late bloomer and not the next Jonathan Drouin, who everybody loved, just like everyone in Toronto loves Kasperi Kapanen, who I do think will still be a very good player. And he would have been fine on Tampa, and maybe he would have been better off in Tampa because you've seen the recent history with Tampa guys, with the exception of Drouin. Instead, Tampa goes to Tony DeAngelo, which was a good pick. One that they might regret, though, now looking back, because they have a lot of older defensemen on their team. And DeAngelo certainly would have been a nice offensive defenseman for them to have right now. The Blackhawks at 20 go with Victor Vritzin. And Vritsin's somebody that would have been higher than this 2 years ago, but he's fallen off a little bit. I don't know what's happened to Vritzin. Maybe it's health issues. But he's still a solid player in the NHL for the Preds. And instead, the Blackhawks go with Nick Schmaltz. 21, the St. Louis Blues, Robbie Fabry. That's ironic because that's who they took in the spot. Fabry's no longer on the Blues. They traded him away. Maybe he'll benefit from a change of scenery. The Penguins at 22 go with Kevin LeBlanc. Obviously, LeBlanc, a role player on the Sharks. He would have helped Pittsburgh too. Instead, Pittsburgh goes with Kasperi Kapanen, who they trade away for Phil Kessel. The Avs at 23 go with Christian Dvorak. Solid player for the Coyotes. Instead, the Avs go with Connor Bleakley. The Canucks at 24 go with Hayden Fleury. So Hayden Fleury falls from 7 to 24 in the redraft. He would have been a good top 4 guy potentially for Vancouver. And instead they went with Jared McCann, who I already talked about. The Bruins at 25 go with Alex Tuch. He had a career year last year with the Vegas Golden Knights, but fell off a little bit. He would have been fine on Boston as a third-line player. And instead, they go with David Pastrnak, which was the right call. 26, the Canadiens go with Adrian Kempe. Solid young player for the Kings, who would have helped Montreal. Instead, Montreal goes with Nikita Sherbak. The Sharks at 27 go with Warren Foegele. Foegele, good role player for the Hurricanes. He would have helped San Jose. Maybe he would have been the Kevin LeBlanc role. And instead, the Sharks went with Nikolai Golovin. The Islanders at 28 go with Nick Ritchie, who falls from 10 to 28 in the redraft. Anaheim really had high hopes for him, and then they traded him away to Boston. Instead, the Isles went with Josh Ho-Sang. 29, the Kings go with Ivan Barbashev. Barbashev isn't bad. He's somebody that is a good player for the Blues. Instead, the Kings went with Adrian Kempe, who I already talked about. And 30, the Devils go with Brandon Montour. Brandon Montour is not bad. He obviously was traded from the Ducks to the Sabres. Had a good year at the Sabres last year. Good defensive player. He would have certainly been a top 4 D-man on the New Jersey Devils roster. That's for sure. And now I'm going to do my top 10 albums of 2016. No honorable mentions, just a straight countdown today. 10th place, The Life of Pablo, Kanye West. Solid album by one of the best rappers of all time. Kanye really hasn't really been around much lately. He hasn't really been heard from. He has 3 singles off the album: Famous, Father, Stretch My Hands, and Fade. He had an album in 2018, but it's been quiet ever since. 9th place, Joanne, Lady Gaga. An absolute awesome album. Perfect Illusion, Million Reasons, and Joanne were the 3 singles off the album. 8th place, The Weight of These Things, Miranda Lambert. Vice, We Should Be Friends, Tin Man, and Keeper of the Flame are the singles off the album. 7th place, Dig Your Roots, Florida Georgia Line. Good country album. Holy, May We All, God, Your Mama and Me, and Smooth were the singles off that album. 6th place, This Is Acting, Sia. 4 singles off the album: Alive, Cheap Thrills, The Greatest, and Move Your Body. 5th place, Anti, Rihanna, great album. 4 songs that were radio singles: Work, Needed Me, Kiss It Better, and Love on the Brain. 4th place, Dangerous Woman, Ariana Grande, great album. Dangerous Woman, obviously the lead single. Into You, Side to Side, and Every Day were the 4 songs that cracked the radio as singles for Grande off that album. 3rd place, Views, Drake. Another great album by one of the best rappers over the last decade. Hotline Bling, One Dance, Pop Style, Controlla, and Too Good were the singles off that album. 2nd place, Lemonade, Beyonce. I think this is an underrated album, and nobody talks about this album enough, in my opinion. This was fantastic. 5 singles off of it: Formation, Sorry, Hold Up, Freedom, and All Night. And my top album of 2016, Starboy, The Weeknd. Great album by one of the best rappers of today. Very good at R&B as well. A whopping 7 singles off the album: Starboy, I Feel It Comin', Party Monster, Reminder, Rockin', Die For You, and Secrets were the singles off this great album. And that's it for the show today. I'll be back on Monday, recapping the finale of American Idol and the finale of The Last Dance, and going over all the coronavirus news that comes out from the weekend, the KBO scores, and a lot more. Hope you guys have a great weekend, everyone.